we are the ones that wanna choose. Always wanna play, but you never wanna lose.
Hello, and thank you so much for joining another episode of Postmortem Breakdown. So you guys are no stranger to our guest tonight, one of my most favorite fellas, Mr. Luke Parcher, who has his own show on here, in case you didn't know. We've done quite a number of shows together, but I think this is your first time with Andrew, right?
That is correct, yeah. And for those in the audience who aren't sick of me after yesterday, I appreciate you tuning back in. I'm very thrilled to be here. Thanks to Joy and Andrew for the invite. Always great to talk to you guys.
Yes, thank you so much for joining. Andrew, what have you been up to? I haven't talked to you in like a day. What's been going on?
Oh, so much has happened in a day.
I usually keep closer tabs on you.
Yeah, I don't know. Not too much. Well, you know, I was at a engagement party for friends this weekend, so that was fun. And then I also did some cat sitting for them because they were off and about with family. The cat hated me though, hissed at me the whole time. And even though I was feeding the cat like 3-4 times, you know, I was there for like a day and a half. I fed the cat like 3 or 4 times, and I'm someone that usually loves cats, but this cat was just not having it. And actually was being very territorial over the bed too. So I had to spend the first part of my night just sleeping on the couch. Luckily, it was a comfortable couch, but I was like, damn, this is just not how this is supposed to be going down. So yeah,
my God,
that was my weekend. It was interesting.
Oh my word. Well, yeah, that sounds interesting. How about you, Luke? I know you work like 24/7. You're a working machine.
It certainly felt that way the last month or so, yeah. I was at work all day today. I was at work all day yesterday before the show. Now I'm glad to be here and talking politics.
Yes.
Oh, that's what we're doing. We're talking politics.
We were.
Oh, fuck, let me
tonight
go.
was
Never
our
mind.
special show. We did an episode with our old co-host Logan where we just did a show of debauchery. Like it was all we asked questions. It was Valentine's Day. That's right.
Yeah. Oh,
it was Valentine's Day. And we just asked each other questions about love and sex and drinking and drugs. And like, I don't think I've ever laughed so hard in my entire life. So, but this is not one of those. If you guys want to watch it, check it out on my YouTube.
I have to say, all those topics sound substantially more entertaining and more fun than the American political system, which is just an absolute tire fire all of the time.
Well, I mean, politics is a big old circle jerk. So there, I mean,
that's true.
It's
that's
related.
True. They could have, they had some input for that conversation on Valentine's Day. It's just their own very special version of it.
Yes, they fuck people from behind without lube all the time. So,
that should be the Democrats' motto in November.
We'll use lube this time. That's their selling point.
Then the pundits will be like, sounds like the Democrats are developing a sense of humor. It's good. They're becoming more relatable. That'll be...
Yeah, because they started saying MAGA. It's so fucking weird. It's like, oh my God, you guys are so like cool and down to earth because you're saying MAGA.
Hello, fellow kids.
right. What's this saying?
So this is a super chat from Double K 1999. Thank you, Double K. Love cats.
Thank you.
Yes, I generally love cats too. This cat just did not love me. So yeah. Oh, and he also ate some of my cords as well. So not actually swallowed, but just like, you know, bit them to the point where they weren't functional. So you know, I don't know.
I make blind girl cross stitch, and I make animals for everyone. That's what I do. And it takes me a long time, and they turn out like a 5-year-old, to be fair. However, Andrew wanted a cat. So
I did. Just a testament to how much I love cats.
yeah, that's what you chose. What's that say?
They are telling me to adjust my mic. Is that better? Is that louder?
I mean, it's good to me.
Mic
Okay.
check 1 2
But
1
let's see.
2.
And that of course is
No.
Virginia, who never turns off the producer hat. So thank you to
Oh my
Virginia
God,
for
Virginia. Virginia always says, "My Lukey, my Lukey."
Someone else says, Luke doesn't have a cat. Please castigate him. Okay.
This is fair. And this is my friend Michael. Michael, thank you for tuning in. Yes, this is true. I do not have a cat. Yes. And I deserve full condemnation for this fact. Yes.
Well, I don't either. I have a dog that some people think is a cat.
Yeah,
she's
it's
a
cat size.
Pomeranian.
Yeah.
She is. And sometimes people are like this little boy across the street is like, "Mom, what kind of cat is that?" I was like, "The kind that's a dog." Like, it's not a fucking cat. And then I lived next door to these Middle Eastern men, and every time they would see my dog, they'd say, "Hello, kitty." It was really cute. But yeah, people think she's a cat. So we're going to eventually get to stories, I promise. So if you guys are just tuning in, Andrew and I have done this show for about a year. And we pride ourselves in talking a lot about stories that no one else is talking about. We do focus a lot on activism and unions. And tonight we have some gems that, again, nobody's really talking about. So white men always go first. So that's how we do that. Andrew runs the show. And he runs everything on the back end. That's what she said. Because my blind ass can't do it. So Andrew, take it away.
Yeah. So we're going to get started on a little bit of a walk-off that happened with some Amazon employees. So let me just zoom in for a little bit for people to see. A historic walkout at Amazon in California. We were done with it, so we gathered 150 brave souls to walk out. We demanded that we get paid $5 more per hour. If Bezos can go to space, he can, with that, little penis tube there, he can give us, he can give us $5. We put out lives literally on the line every day moving those packages. So I'm just going to share this video here just to give a little bit of more context, and then we'll go from there.
The most monumental day that I've had at Amazon here in San Bernardino.
We were done with it, so we gathered up 150 brave souls to walk out,
demanding that we get paid $5 more.
So if Bezos can get to space, I know that he can give you guys $5.
The associates at KSPD organized and we walked out so that the people that are not listening to our demands can finally put a face to where these demands are coming from, because it wasn't 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 of us.
and this fulfillment center is not like your typical fulfillment center.
So we're in a fulfillment center. You deal with a lot of product, boxing.
And there's also warehouses are then putting it onto the trucks, delivering it to people's direct houses.
Now we're grabbing raw cargo and loading them up.
When the Amazon Air Hub first opened, Amazon promised lots of jobs for the people living within the community, which it did, but nothing to the standard that anyone deserves.
My whole check goes into me being able to come to work. That's not even adding food.
Amazon knows that we're thriving for them, so how come they can't do that for us?
We put our lives literally on the line every day, moving these packages, and Amazon doesn't consider how much effort we put in it.
Workers say concerns regarding low pay and dangerous
There's
working
a lot of
conditions are.
expectation of getting everything done on time because everything needs to get on the planes. Sometimes at that point, all safety out the window.
They're always willing to turn a cheek or to the other side when something needs to be done in a quick amount of time.
They open the large doors to let in the product, but it also lets in the heat from the outside that has reached over 100 degrees during July.
I personally have faced heat-related issues. Those cans were sitting outside in the sun for like 30 minutes, and they're like an oven. So I was working for about 4 hours in those. And I experienced nosebleeds, profuse sweating, and everything. And when I went to AmCare, I wasn't even offered like a water or a cooling rack. They just told me I could sit down for 10 minutes, and that was it. I don't think that's right at all.
I got hurt in an injury back in March where I was put in a very stressful environment where I ended up hitting my head on one of the metal containers that we're going in and out of. I had a concussion that Amazon first didn't even want to acknowledge.
Around 900 facility workers signed on to a July petition for a pay raise, demanding a 5-hour increase to their starting wage.
When we presented the petition to the senior ops manager, he told us to wait. He couldn't give us an answer.
In response to that petition, he gave us an all-hands meeting 2 weeks after. So instead of giving us the $5 raise that we were asking for, Amazon told us to take the bus.
I'm going to give everyone 3 homework assignments today. This is the first one. Check out how much grade one side.
And to carpool.
Is if you take a ride with someone to work, one person in your car, and you log into their program, you're eligible to get up to $5 a day in earnings.
And to take advantage of their discounts.
It has a list of benefits, right? You can search for comments that you use every day, like auto or renter's insurance. For me, I looked up Verizon, got a discount on my cell phone plan.
And that got us all furious.
Because we were reaching out to them, the employer, the people that should be responsible for the people that work for them. They did not care. It was totally insulting.
Yeah, some people called it the throw hands meeting because of how hostile it felt.
It doesn't help us, though. That's no help. No help. That's not something I can do when we don't have a direct relationship.
Is that a threat?
No, it's not a threat.
It sounds like
Like
one.
I said, when we make a mistake, that's fine. Let's figure out what we did wrong.
They bit off more than they could chew with this new air facility.
The lack of action from Amazon prompted 150 plus workers to walk off the job on August
$5 would
15th.
change my life because then I wouldn't have to worry about what I have to eat every day. I wouldn't have to worry about if I'm going to make rent.
Like I wouldn't have to worry about how much gas I'm going to be spending just to get to work.
Fuck Mars, I'm trying to live here. Give me a livable enough wage to live in San Bernardino.
Amazon has not moved on workers' demands for a 5-hour wage. One supervisor claimed that a pay review is coming in September and October.
If I could speak to Jeff Bezos, I would invite him to San Bernardino to work in this warehouse where you're only making $17 an hour and it's unsafe conditions for 10 hours a day. I want to see what you could do. I want to see if you could handle it.
First of all, everyone needs to follow More Perfect Union because they are phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. I've found some incredible guests through them. They're just amazing and they do an incredible job. But we were actually just talking about this situation before the break. I work in a warehouse, as does Luke, and my we don't have air conditioning in mine either. Now, I make $10 an hour. I have never made that little in 20 years. But because of my blindness, nobody else was hiring me. And what other choice do you have? People think like disability is like some huge like payout, and it's not. I needed a job to supplement my disability. Like that's what happens. So I understand working a physical labor job without fucking air. And I've definitely been there where I've gotten nauseous. In a 5-hour shift, I go through 4 bottles of water, literally in a 5-hour shift every day. I work 4 days a week, even as part-time. I was just out 2 weeks for COVID. No pay. No sick pay whatsoever. Even though CDC says you have 5 days off, they made me take 10. And I'm out 2 weeks of pay. because of it. So, there's no benefits. You're treated like, just completely like shit. And like, the thing that I love so much about these stories is like 150 of them, like that is solidarity.
Yeah.
That is solidarity. Because when I've gone to my coworkers who also feel sick, who also complain about no air conditioning, they're scared to say something. I'm not. Corporate came in and I had words face to face. I was like, no, this is unacceptable. Here's what's going to happen. But a lot of people are scared. So the fact that 150 of them were like, fuck this, we're out. I love that so fucking much. Luke, are you guys union? I forgot to ask if you're union.
So I'm at Costco. We are not union. I am fortunate to, as I was telling you guys earlier, I do get a little bit better pay and benefits than a lot of comparable jobs from Costco, but we are basically perpetually understaffed. The way that it's been explained to me is that Costco runs at exactly the staffing it would need if no one ever called out. But then they also offer sick pay, personal days, and vacation days. And when someone takes those, you are just left to deal with that, right? So I am fortunate in a lot of regards, the job that I have, but it all comes at a cost, and there are many issues that come with it too. I'm equally encouraged about this Amazon situation. I think Amazon in particular, if I'm not mistaken, it's the second largest private employer in the country. To see this kind of pushback in Amazon, this is a huge one, you guys. I mean, I obviously I stand in full solidarity with any and all workers who are striking or unionizing or organizing. To me, this one in particular has a way to, like, a potential to tip the scales in a way that even I think the Starbucks push does not. And again, I don't mean that as any sort of condemnation of the Starbucks baristas who fully support their efforts as well. But I think Amazon, just the role it plays in our economy, I think that workers pushing back against them and having success, I think that has a potential to turn the environment for workers in a way that not many other companies or workers for other companies have that potential to change. So it's incredibly encouraging to see this kind of thing.
I agree.
I think it's interesting too, because there are two different type of workers if we're comparing Starbucks baristas and warehouse workers, right? And so it's good to see that there's a diversification in terms of different types of jobs that are trying to unionize and are pushing back against the corporate system, right? I think one of the things one of the people I know who's one of the lead organizers in the 40 plus day strike in Starbucks recently said, actually went on Sabby Sab's show, is that it's not just about Starbucks, it could be your workplace tomorrow, right? And I think that is starting to reign true with all of these different places that are happening. And I mean, I think, as we know, Amazon has one of the highest in their warehouse. They have one of the highest injury rates of all different warehouses and deaths, right? I believe I forget where this was now, but this happened like literally 6 or 7 months ago, where there were several people who died because there was like a storm and the management did not let them leave, right? So
not just that, they were texting drivers, "You'll be fired if you don't come back to the warehouse that's about to get hit by a tornado." And I would also add, it came out later that Amazon had cut a bunch of corners in building that warehouse. Engineers came and showed up and they said, "You didn't even do the basic anchoring on this building. This is not a legal building." So I didn't mean to cut you off, but that was one of the most egregious cases that I have ever seen of worker mistreatment in that regard.
Yeah. And there was one, I remember there was one text where literally one of the workers texted their partner saying, "I'm going to be late. They're making us stay." And there was like, "How much longer are you going to be there?" And then you see question mark. And that was because that person, unfortunately, died.
Yep.
And he had a little baby too.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So absolutely.
And then there was the girl last year who died of COVID because they wouldn't let her take time off because she literally had COVID, had horrible symptoms. They wouldn't let her leave anyway. And she just legit collapsed on the floor. They ignored her and she died.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for those who didn't see last week's show, me and Andrew covered UPS workers who are dying on the job because they don't have fucking air in their trucks.
Right.
And they're working in like California, Texas, Arizona, where the trucks are getting to 140 degrees and they're doing like 12-hour shifts. It's inhumane.
And ironically, UPS drivers used Amazon as an example for how they actually have AC in their trucks. So talk about just a complete race to the bottom that we have right now when it comes to, because, you know, Amazon, let's be clear. Literally, we were reading stories about them having to shit in bags in their trucks because they didn't have enough time to go. And Rob Baxter brings up a good chat saying, check out today's episode of Status Quo. It talks about how Amazon workers require permission to use the bathroom. Yeah, I did see a headline on that as well. And even if they don't, I mean, factor in how so many of these warehouses, they get like 15-minute breaks and they have to walk like 5 minutes to go to the bathroom. So even if they don't have to ask for permission, at best case scenario, they hardly have any opportunities to do so anyway. So, and
that story, if you guys remember, like, I just want to drive this point home too. When something like that comes out, there's a stark pattern that no company ever breaks from. They lie about it. And Amazon tried to deny that this was happening. Ken Klippenstein with The Intercept got his hands on internal memos from Amazon that, like, management was discussing how much of a problem this was while they said to the public it's not even fucking happening. So just be aware when companies respond to stories about this or rhetoric from workers, they're lying. That's like the base rule. You know what I mean? They're going to be deceitful about these things.
Yeah. And this is the same.
And the worst part is they're the richest people. The richest are always the greediest. Fact. I mean, mom and pop places aren't going to do this shit. It's the greedy motherfuckers that, you know, have everything they could possibly want at their disposal, but they have such a fucking boner with destroying people's lives, and they just exploit them, and that's how they get off, and that's what makes them happy, because they're fucking sadists.
And the irony is that, you know, in that clip we saw, the guy was talking about how unions, if you caught it, unions ruin the relationship that they have with their employees. What fucking relationship do you have with corporations where it's an entity, right? You could maybe make that argument a little bit. I'll still support unionizing in a mom and pop store, right? There was a sandwich place that unionized down the street from me. I was 100% supportive of that. But
I remember that.
Yeah, yeah, City Feed, United. But
yes.
You can, but still, like, there is no relationship there. Like, do you have Jeff Bezos on your speed dial? No, I don't think so. So.
You are truly a number to Jeff Bezos, like truly a number. Right. And just on the point of how unions are often portrayed by management and corporations, Chipotle just actually had a successful unionization effort. Yes, I don't know if you guys saw that.
Did in Lansing, right? Yeah.
I believe that's correct. Yeah. The company's response was, quote, this is what they said to the press. I'm paraphrasing, but I think it's pretty direct. It was something like, "We are disappointed in your decision to let a third party represent you." As though the union is not made up of the workers, right? They portray it like it's some third party coming in from the outside to ruin things. It's thoroughly disingenuous, and every bit of strategy that they engage in is to try to deceive people into not understanding what is going on.
Wow, that's amazing. I don't know why any of this shit even shocks me. Like, I sit there like, and then I'm like, why the fuck is my mouth hanging open? Like, I don't know. It's like, I couldn't work for 2 years waiting for disability. And then when I got back into the workforce, I was like so naive to, just how everything is means of production. Like, you are expendable. Like, you may think you have value, but you don't. Like, there are 20 more of you right there willing to do your job, and they're going to be faster and they're going to be better. And places like Amazon, it's truth. I mean, unfortunately, like, I know a few people who have like a criminal record and like drug history and stuff. Amazon's the only place that'll take them, so they go. And that's why Amazon knows it has that, option where they're just like, we're just going to take the so-called expendables nobody else wants, and then they can't leave. That's the
it's
kind
I
of
mean
shit they pull.
it's slavery with extra steps is what it is. And Amazon, by the way, they're only
absolutely.
doing that because there's been a lot of reporting about how Amazon is worried they're literally going to run out of potential workers in a matter of like a handful of years. They will have run through all of the potential workers in the country. I mean, it's absurd. No one has a turnover. They have their turnover rate is over 100%, you guys.
I think it's like 150 now, right?
Yeah, it's insane. It's not sustainable, right? So even they have to acknowledge, like, we have to find someone. But notice, instead of saying we'll treat people better to try to retain them, instead they say let's find another pool of even more desperate people that we can exploit for their labor. That's their response.
They're like looking at the census, like, when are these babies turning 18? Come on, you guys, let's go. Like, every now and then you see those fucking articles that's like, you know, millennials aren't having as many kids as no fun. With what money? What the fuck do you want me to do?
We're simultaneously told that we're financially irresponsible and also told, but you should have a bunch of kids when you can't afford it.
Let's procreate. Let's get those kids, you know, who are going to suffer with climate change and you know, just be used by robots at Amazon and stuff. But let's pump them out. Come on, guys. Yes.
One other interesting thing I wanted to also talk about before we kind of go on to the next topic is the fact that Amazon now has so many commercials talking about how well they treat their workers.
Oh,
and one of the things they highlight on is the fact that they help out with college tuition, right?
Yep.
And but I remember talking with People's Voice Network. We spoke to one of the workers in South Cause workers in South Carolina and everything who are trying to unionize. And I said, you know, when they say, like, what is the actual truth about that? And the fact is they take so much out of your paycheck and then say that they're helping you out with tuition, right? They essentially tax it. So imagine making as little as you're making and barely able to get by and then being like, okay, I'll go, you know, so that's the real truth there about that. So. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think one of the things that bothers me more than anything, it's like I kind of expect this mentality from corporations and executives and thin shareholders, but I think there's this added layer of like disgust and like it's just morally reprehensible to pretend that you're somehow this like progressive, forward-thinking, pro-worker company. Starbucks does this a lot too, and they've engaged in historic union-busting tactics, right? So they're pro-worker until you dare to think you should have a voice in your workplace, and then it's no sit down and shut the fuck up, and we will hire lawyers to try to figure out how to keep you from having a voice in your workplace.
And the other thing about Starbucks that is such a common thing is homophobia, racism, transphobia. Like so many workers share this shit. It's truly mind blowing. Like the one manager was telling this trans woman that she would lose her insurance if she became unionized and stuff. I mean, remember, Starbucks had to close an entire day for racial sensitivity training. What the fuck is that? Because it's absolutely bananas.
And that's one of the reasons why I think I get pissed off when certain people who proclaim themselves as leftists start using right-wing talking points against trans people, against LGBTQ community, because it's like, if you're anti-worker, if you are denigrating these groups of people, because a lot of the labor issues is baked in is homophobia, transphobia.
Absolutely.
So if you can't be there for the workers, you're useless in terms of like fighting for labor rights. And so
I think a lot of lefties think that they are somehow appealing to a wider crowd by doing the I'm not woke thing. I'm a socialist for workers, but I'm not woke. Well, guess what? Like 15% of those workers are going to be part of the LGBTQ community, if not more. So like that's just based on the public polling is 10 to 15%. So you're basically saying all but you. And that's just as bad. You know, I think that's a really important point to drive home. When lefties engage in that kind of rhetoric, I think they should check themselves and take a look in the mirror.
I noticed that a lot in with Medicare for all people. They don't realize that, like, we're fighting for everyone. Everyone. Like, all means all. Literally everyone. I don't give a fuck if someone's Republican. I don't give a fuck. Like, you cannot be selective. You cannot pick certain workers and certain patients and stuff. Like, you stand for issues, and issues affect everyone. And you're right. I do see that with people who say they're lefties all the time.
And that's an important distinction, by the way. Kevin just put in the chat, like, they're probably not really lefties. And that is a really important thing to distinguish. I think you said it right there, Joy. People who claim to or purport to be lefties, I think is probably the better way
That's probably a better way to say it.
Yeah, I haven't called myself a leftist in like over a year. I just say I'm what do I say? Like a free thinker. I'm independent. Like, I don't need a fucking label. I don't care what the fuck you call me. This is what I believe, period. Because I mean, you see people like, okay, Dr. Oz. I'm in Pennsylvania. He's calling like Fetterman leftist and shit.
It's and by the way, it's Doc Hollywood, not Dr. Oz. But yeah, no, I totally agree. The false it's a false dichotomy that's been created that's based in partisanship, right? You'll see this on cable news too, where they'll say like the progressives, and they think they mean Democrats. It's like these labels are all incredibly dubious and meaningless, and sort of used in a way that's meant to prop up the powers that be and act as though they are somehow not the establishment.
Yeah, absolutely agree. Like, remember when Hillary was running and she goes, I'm a progressive who gets things done.
Oh my god. Well, quickly on Hillary, there was three different
psycho.
Well, thank you. That's what she meant by progressive. There were three different quotes, I'll say this very quickly, that Hillary gave on the 2016 campaign. You tell me if any of this is coherent at all, okay? First quote, she said that her politics are rooted in her conservative upbringing. Second quote is, I take a backseat to no one when it comes to pushing progressive policies. And the third quote is, if you accuse me of being a moderate, I plead guilty.
Yes. Yep. And I have a public and private position.
Yes. Yeah. And I'm sure one of those was said with a southern accent in South Carolina, right? Because she's just that much of a fucking fraud.
Yes. Oh my god. Andrew, are we entertaining?
Yeah.
This is what happens. Me and Luke get together, and then me and Andrew get together. It's like, that's why you guys are some of my favorite fellas. I like talking to you guys. What's the next topic of the night?
So I guess we should do Jesse Lee Peterson, right?
Oh no.
This is an interesting one. I guarantee you guys didn't hear about this one.
All right. So
talk Jesse about transphobe and homophobia, but this is a different kind of spin.
Jesse Lee Peterson, MC of the Straight Pride rally in Modesto tomorrow, whose organizers call LGBTQ people satanic, is also currently in the middle of sex scandal after several of his male followers have come forward. Okay.
Yeah, if you click on it, there are articles there. It's really fascinating because this reminds me of like all those religious dudes who like are like, oh, you're going to hell if you're gay, and then it's like, oh, he was found with a gay prostitute. You know, it's like, dude, you're just so insecure with your sexuality. Like, gay people are not that obsessed with gay sex. Like, the fact that you were that obsessed with it, I'm sorry, I believe you're secretly gay.
They're telling on themselves with their obsession, right? I mean, it's so obvious. And also, I will say, a lot of these people, I think, in a sense, are victim. Not Jesse, just to be really clear, because he's about as disgusting a human being as you can possibly find. But I think a lot of these people, I think they were just like raised by abusive parents and families and communities into thinking it's bad, right? Or they're so hyper religious that they're scared they're going to go to hell. So they force themselves to pretend to be something that they are not, and that comes out in the form of hating the thing. They hate themselves because they've been taught to hate themselves, and then they project that out onto everybody else. I think it's really like sad in a sense, but it's also obviously, you know, very hypocritical and needs to be pointed out, especially for people who consider their opinions worth hearing and tend to use the platform to hate on others.
Right. That's my first thought is, wait, but he's still the MC. Like, why are they still having him MC? Like, that's what I was wondering. Like, isn't that kind of awkward?
You make the mistake of thinking these conservatives pay any attention to reality at all.
Right? Like, hi, I'm your MC today. Yeah, I've been, accused by men of hitting on them, but still, gay people. Yeah, that's amazing.
Oh,
I think so. I think I saw like two things by Jesse Lee Peterson, because there was, I think, a phase where there were some people who would just have him on just like for entertainment purposes.
Yes.
And I literally just was watching the whole time and was like, wait, is this a parody? Is this real?
yeah.
And I guess, yeah, he really is trying to say these things seriously and somehow has a following. I guess. I don't know. How big is this following?
I think he's actually pretty big, but a lot of these right-wingers that are on YouTube and on social media really do have large followings. I wish I could cite it, but I can't remember who it was. I saw a tweet a couple days ago. Some commentator who's on the left said that they had Jesse on or went on Jesse's show or something like that years ago. It was Ron. You're right. It was Ron. And he said something about like the perception I got is that the guy's just a fraud and that he's just an act.
Right.
And I think that's probably correct when someone's as ridiculous. I mean, you guys have seen Jesse, right? His whole political analysis comes down to beta male, alpha male. Like he's one of these. It's really not serious at all. And I think it is revealed to be an act if you spend any time watching him, which, makes this story kind of make a little bit more sense, I suppose.
I think one of the reasons, he does have a big following is because he is a man of color. And anytime a man of color or woman of color supports Trump and things like that, they're automatically going to be revered because they're different. Like, it's like, whoa, here's a person of color, but they actually believe what we believe. Holy shit.
Yeah.
So I think that definitely has something to do with it. But
Candace Owens, Dave Rubin, they tokenize anyone who's part of a group that they hate, that they can say, but see, this person also hates them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Andrew, what else you got?
All right. Well, I guess this goes well into our next. Give me 1 second. Let me get rid of that. Our next piece, so this is going on in a Michigan public library, right? So I'm just going to pull up this article. Give me 1 second. All right. Let's see. Michigan library risks closing after voters pull funding over LGBT-themed books. So this is the one public library in this small town. A public library in rural Michigan risks closing after the community voted to defund it following an outcry over its LGBT-themed books. Township residents voted against a public-funded measure for the Patmos Library in Jamestown Township, Michigan, earlier this month after it declined to remove certain books that detractors allege were inappropriate for children. Without the measure, which would have funded the library with local property taxes, it slated to lose 85% of its annual $250,000 budget in 2023. Jamestown Conservatives, a group leading the initiative to pull Patmos funding, reportedly distributed flyers locally that claimed it was stocked with books replete with LGBT subject matter and pornographic sexual graphic material intended for very young and impressionable kids. The flyer also criticized a pride display at the library and urged readers to pray for changes that would make it a safe and neutral place for our children. Among the books that drew the ear of some parents was Gender Queer, a memoir, an award-winning 2014 graphic novel by Maya Kobaba. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that. And then according to an online listing for the book, Gender Queer is a cathartic autobiography that charts your journey of self-identity, which includes the mortification and confusion of adolescent crushes, grappling with how to come out to family and society, bonding with friends over erotic gay fan fiction, and facing the trauma and fundamental violation of pap smears. And so, yeah, they go into a little bit about these different books.
Wait, go up and show that picture because it's amazing. So they did a fundraiser, and it's
Yes.
fabulous.
Yeah, I'll be showing the fundraiser too in a little bit in case anyone that is watching wants to donate. They have reached a good amount of numbers to keep this library going. This article does mention in November they get to also revote on the ballot to see if they should fund this public library. But yeah, on August 2, I guess they did a vote to defund everything. And I guess according to this article, which is a few days old, I think we're going to look at the GoFundMe a little bit. It has since been set up to say it has raised more than $150,000 as of Monday. So, I mean, this struck me in multiple ways. I mean, obviously, there's the obvious of just complete moral panic amongst, conservatives, where it's like, oh my gosh, you have books that talk about how the fact that, certain people may be on the LGBTQ spectrum and how to explore that, right? But the other is it's literally like, particularly this conservative group that was behind this, there has been definitely a sort of low-key battle to destroy, well, that's really not low-key, to destroy anything public, right? And the public library is actually, it's one that someone put it, I think, greatly. It's one of the few places left in this world where you can just go inside and you're not expected to spend any money. You can just exist.
Yeah,
no one's
true.
going to bother you, right? And so I almost kind of wonder, I mean, part of the reason why I think they're probably doing this culture war is it benefits certain interest groups who really just want to privatize everything, right? And use that as a bait and switch to be like, oh, I'm not funding any grooming shit, right? And so, yeah, curious to hear some of your thoughts on that. And while you're talking, I'm going to get up this fundraiser as well.
Go for it, Luke.
Oh God! I mean, I could go for about 16 hours if you guys have the time on this one.
That's what she said.
I mean,
sorry.
There we go. A little lighthearted fun to in a dark topic. The one that stands out to me, I mean, first of all, I would be remiss if I didn't plug MMT. This is part of the reason that it is so valuable to fund things that are in the interest of the public good from the federal government. It makes it a lot more difficult for a conservative community to do shit like this. And the second thing that just really, there's the GoFundMe. Please do contribute, you guys, if you can. I think this is an incredibly important cause.
Holy shit!
I can put
That's
this
a
in the
lot.
chat too. $243,940 that they've made.
Yep.
They're
And if
close
someone
to
wants to,
Holy shit!
if someone wants to drop $60, it'll be $244. Really do encourage everybody to help out with that fundraiser. The second piece of this that really stands out, and again, it's kind of on the surface and obvious, but aren't these the same fucking people who are constantly going on and on about how they're free speech absolutists? And then it is always the religious right that is engaging in literal book burning and literally banning texts from schools and banning the use of pronouns from schools. I don't think it gets, the rank hypocrisy is like hard to even fathom, let alone try to discuss in a setting like this. I mean, I don't even know where to start with it. It is so hypocritical through and through. So those are kind of the things that stand out to me.
I do, and I'm not even joking. I genuinely do hope that they import books about cults and groupthink and religious mindset and how abusive it is to threaten kids that they're going to hell and eternal damnation and things like that. I hope they bring books like that in there and say, look, we're also going to be using this as a learning opportunity to show these are the people that didn't want this library to stay open.
Yeah. Yeah, and to your guys' earlier point, it's a space where you don't actually have, nothing's commodified. You don't actually have to spend any money. So that's a plus in and of itself. It's also a community building space where people can be together without having to, it's not going out to a restaurant together where you're pretty much expected to spend money. The other thing is, though, obviously, you guys, like, libraries are like, the point is kind of supposed to be obtaining knowledge and learning things and like expanding your views on things. I'm so sorry about my camera app. It does that every now and again. I promise I'm still here. But, like, to turn it into something that is so controlled by the powers that be, let alone by the right wingers who are more interested in engaging in demagoguery than they are any sort of information sharing or knowledge building. I think it's a particularly sad case when it's a library of all things, like one of the few places left where I think, in particular for us lefties, where there's like a space for us to build community and educate. That it's just they know what to attack. I think is kind of the point, and to Andrew's earlier point that it fits right in with their scheme to not just privatize everything, but even where they know they can't yet privatize it, they want to gut it and then point and say, see, public spending doesn't work. So it's all part of this mission to move things towards privatization, and I think all of that applies to this story.
Because if you were to poll people, if you were to straight up poll people and say, do you think public libraries should exist, right? You're probably going to get, I would say, at least 80 to 85 people that say yes, right? Like, do you think your town should have a public library, right? We can even do something like that, right? I would be willing to bet at least 80% of people would say yes. But then when you start saying, well, do you think your taxpayer money should go to these grooming, child, like you just kind of, then people would be like, what? And that's how you start to really
like they're responsible for it. That's what they always do. Like, you're willingly or not, you are contributing to this. Are you okay with that? And then they make people feel guilty, like, holy fuck, like I'm enabling this, I'm perpetuating this, I should have a say. And that's exactly, it's the mind fuck they do. Absolutely.
And they also bastardize public spending. I get that this is often funded at the local level, not the federal level, but we see a lot of this with the student debt rhetoric too, where it's like, you have to pay for so-and-so's, right? And that is at the federal level, a misunderstanding of how it works. And even at the local level, it's really a misunderstanding of what the purpose behind public institutions actually is, right? I mean, I'm reminded of like, back when there was debate about whether or not peasants should have baths in their house, right? And the argument that ended up winning the day was, I don't want you to have a bath for your sake. I want you to have a bath for my sake. Right. And that's kind of like, we all benefit from these public institutions and from rising the tide. Right. All boats rise with the rising tide. So I think that there's a lot of intentional misrepresentation of what the purpose of these public institutions is and the finance behind them in order to try to get people to think you're going to be the one that's paying for this and that has a negative impact on your life for everyone else. And that also speaks to the hyper individualism in this fucking country, which, again, I could go on and on about for hours, but I think is a big, serious part of the problem.
Yeah. And I think, Andrew, you brought up a really good point as well, because there is no capital, involved. So except your day late, you owe $1.35, like that kind of thing. And then it just goes to like, local things. But that's a very interesting point, because it really is like the only thing left that doesn't really have capital involved. And with that being said, if capital is not involved, they are losing capital somewhere else. Barnes and Noble isn't getting your money because you're going and getting that book for free.
Right.
Best Buy is not getting your money for that movie because you just rented it for free.
Or tie it back in, Amazon is not getting your money because,
That's true. That is true. Yes. Oh no, what if they start buying libraries? Oh my God.
Joy, don't even say it. Don't even speak it into it. Don't even.
Why would you do that to me? I was an English major. I'm gonna cry. That's so bad.
They would probably sell like a subscription base where it's like you could pay this much per month to come. Yeah, that's exactly.
They already have this with audiobooks. I mean, they already,
Yeah. So
it's readable instead of audible, and they're just gonna fucking take everything.
Teresa 273 mentioned magazines $12.99 at the grocery store. And let's not mention a lot of these magazines are like crap. They're like designed to just completely melt your brain, like so,
fake stories about celebrities cheating on each other, and it's
It's like you can literally get everything online that it says by going to their website. You know what? I just canceled my Jacobin after like a bajillion years since its inception. And I've interviewed a lot of the writers. I respect a lot of them, but I'm just really done with them. I'm done with a lot of their coverage has been very disappointing lately in the actual magazines themselves. So I still get the Hard Times. That's the only one I still get. I canceled The Nation a while back after like 15 years because they're just shit libs. But in these times, I'm holding on to for now. Please keep doing what you're doing. But yeah, I had to finally just say goodbye to Jacobin last month because I was just done.
In my experience, a lot of the good Jacobin pieces are free. Like I access them a lot and use them for my show.
Yeah.
So I don't know what you really need to subscribe for. I'm sure there's other content they're providing, but I think with a lot of these outlets, like you can find good writers here and there. You can find good pieces here and there. I mean, I could go find you a decent piece in the New York Times, but it's the exception to the rule, which is kind of the point. So why pay for an outlet that is largely going to do establishment regurgitation when, you know, you can often find a lot of that stuff for free?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What'd that say? You gotta read me in the comments.
Yes, libraries are like the last public sanctuaries. Desert Mantis says we lost 2 bookstores in our town. And then Desert Mantis also says, I subscribe to My High Country News. Okay. Cool.
Never heard of that.
There's a lot of people. There's a lot of people who are stressed out about the $12.99 magazines, rightfully so.
You know what? I actually, my book that I published, it is sold at Barnes and Noble online. But it's I have it for sale in some music stores because they're mom and pop places, and I prefer to go that route than go to like in Barnes and Noble. It's just print to order. Like otherwise my books come from me at my house. But yeah, so I've brought them to music stores because I like that mom and pop and underground, you know, it's way better that way. But yeah. What's that say?
So Jacobin has anti-MMTers like Doug Henwood and Matt Brunig, who is a diehard Hoobler. Yeah.
Matt is just
UBIer. Yep.
Oh, that's UBIer. Okay.
UBIer. Yeah. And thanks to Rob for that comment. I absolutely agree with that.
His wife's a cuckoo bird too.
Oh yeah.
She's not as bad per se, but he's
not
something.
as bad. Quite a bar, right?
Yeah.
But no, you guys are just to quickly comment on the music industry thing. I think that's another one that like it just fits right in with this discussion. What Spotify and record labels have done to musicians and artists for the last like I don't know at least 2 or 3 decades is outrageous, right? I'm a hip hop head myself. What happened in the 90s and the 2000s to hip hop artists is outrageous, beyond outrageous. And the whole industry has gone right down the route we were just talking about with libraries, and you know, so it is interesting that some music stores have survived, but I think it's almost on its own different sort of business model where it's like people who collect records and things are going to go into the music store, right? It's not quite like an old bookstore where it's like this is my source for books. It's a little bit more of like a niche sort of industry. Yes, exactly. So I think that's an interesting strategy, Joy, to try to put like that may well be your best route to push a book that's not probably going to get much love from the establishment publishers.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and not to get too off topic, but yeah, every once in a while you see like old DVD VHS stores that are still open, and it's just like wow, you know.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Oh God, going to Blockbuster as a kid with your friends and walking around to pick out oh God, those memories are so nostalgic to me. And now you just sit there on the couch and fucking it kind of sucks, right?
Right, exactly.
Oh my God,
the
it was
trips
like
to the
a
movie stores
fucking.
were great.
Yeah, they were.
Like walking into Blockbuster was like, every time you walk in, it was like, oh my God, the best feeling ever. What do I want? What do I want? And then you walk around for like an hour and leave with the first movie you saw anyway, or
Yeah,
you go
yeah.
there and you're so excited because a new release comes out that day, but like all 4 of them are already rented out, and you're so upset, and there's like that's it. You don't have any other fucking options. There is no online. Like you're just gonna have to wait.
Well, and if Blockbusters existed today, don't you know the far right would be canceling them for the back room, right? They'd be saying it's grooming and.
Oh, true.
That's true. That's true.
And then I'd go get a job there and be like, hey. I actually applied to my local porn shop, but because I was like, they pay all right, and I would meet some really cool people, but I had to do register if I work there, and I can't see the keys. But I was down. I was like, I would have fun with this. I like talking to people and shit.
That'd be a great job. I feel like that would be fun.
I would have a fucking blast.
Yeah. Until the religious zealots show up across the street with their picket signs and fucking, And
I'd be like, y'all need to get laid, okay? Just calm the fuck down. Here, I'll give you a discount.
So Gavin Newsom, we'll pull this up.
Speaking of cucks.
So Steve Greenhouse. Yeah. So, wow, this is according to Stephen Greenhouse. Wow, the same day Gavin Newsom says he can't accept legislation passed by the state assembly and Senate to make it easier for farm workers to vote in union elections, we learned that a winery Newsom co-founded just bought a massive Napa vineyard for $14 million. Yeah.
Anytime you see anyone vote a certain way, look for the deeper story, always, because there is always something there. It's fucking bananas.
Right. Yeah. And the scary thing is that, now there are some libs that are starting to realize, okay, maybe Biden isn't the best choice. They're starting to give into that. And so many of them are starting to you're starting to see more and more articles pop up of being like, oh, maybe Gavin Newsom could be the next person, right? I think there was even a poll, and it was kind of funny because sometimes you just kind of sit back and you're, as someone who's just kind of hates them all, and just laugh at the people who are swearing by one of them, right? There was like a poll that came out that polled all these California voters, and it actually came out that there were more said that they would be more likely to vote for Gavin Newsom than Biden. And whew, did that piss off some Biden supporters? And it's just like...
Oh, and by the way, guess who else was on that poll? And guess who came in third? Kamala Harris. Her own state. She's vice president. The libs set her up to run for the White House. She came in third. She was behind Gavin Newsom and behind Bernie in her own fucking state.
Oh, Gavin was first and Bernie was second.
Correct. Yep.
Well, I know Bernie 2024 was trending yesterday. I'm not sure why. I just caught it at the end. But interesting. Well, Gavin Newsom, isn't that the one they had a special election?
To recall him?
Recall him. Yeah, to recall him.
That was like last September or something. Yeah. Or something.
AOC went with her abolish ICE hat, even though he's like, not exactly a person you'd wear that hat for. But yeah, so I kind of figured they might like float him for something. I mean, the thing is, Biden is such garbage that anyone will be like, well, they're better. It's like, yeah, so am I. I'm not fucking running for president. Like,
a pet rock would be better. Like your standard is, I mean, it's sort of like the liberals who were like, well, you have to support whoever the nominee is because otherwise it's Trump. And it's like, are you really sitting there and saying your standard is anything better than the orange clown? That is your standard. I mean, it's such a pathetic admission.
There are literally people who are now saying, Liz Cheney might not be a bad idea to run on the Democrat. Like, there's literally people saying this now, and it's like
she has more support from Democrats than she does for Republicans.
Right.
She voted with Trump 93% of the time. She's a fucking Cheney. Her dad stole an election. I'm gonna have an aneurysm if you let me go down this fucking path.
And the best part was that
dad shot his best friend in the face and then made his friend apologize.
eyes. No, but when Liz Cheney was, before she lost her primary, there were ads, of course, trying to, desperate ads trying to get people to vote for her. She literally had her father talk about how Donald Trump is the worst, killed democracy. I'm like, you're bringing out Dick Cheney to say how Donald Trump is such a. I mean, you can't make this shit up.
What does Halliburton do, Dick? I mean, what did you do in 2000? You stole a fucking election. I mean, I literally don't even know where to start. Liz Cheney voted with Trump on voting rights, and the liberals are like, oh, she's here to save our democracy. It is patently absurd.
And the same people.
It's very interesting because we, especially since 2015, we have heard nothing but Republicans are bad, Republicans are the devil, Republicans are evil. But then you get the W passing the candies back and forth to Michelle. You've got now you've got Liz Cheney, but also you've got Manchin and Sinema, who are Dems, who are garbage, and they're acknowledging they're bad. So we've learned a lot the past year or so. There are Republicans that are not the worst people in the world, and there are Dems that are not the best people in the world. So now we can use that shit as leverage, because that's what I always say when they're like, vote blue. I'm like, even for Sinema and Manchin, that's the problem with team sports.
Just very, very quickly, what's become the litmus test in American politics is how do you feel about January 6th and how do you feel about Stop the Steal? And it literally does not matter if you are an open Nazi. If you say, I think January 6th was bad, the liberals will praise you. That is what we've devolved to.
Yep.
Well, and the interesting thing, too, I just want to talk about Liz Cheney, is she is, anti-abortion, right? But then these same people who are like, propping up Liz Cheney, even though she's anti-abortion, will blame Susan Sarandon for losing abortion, or Bernie, or anyone who voted for Bernie, or anyone who voted for Jill Stein. And it's just like, you're literally propping up somebody who is anti.
I mean, how about Henry Cuellar, right? The party leadership gets behind Henry Cuellar in Texas. He's the only anti-choice Democrat in the House, and then they turn around and fearmonger about abortion, which you should that's the wrong term. We should be terrified about the Dobbs decision, but they turn around and use that to fundraise and campaign while they support anti-choice candidates against progressives. It is so the hypocrisies are just layered on top of each other, and the contradictions. It's totally senseless.
Yeah, absolutely. No moral ground at all there. So yeah, I guess Luke.
What's it say?
So it says, "Hey Luke, did you know that YouTube deleted your segment from last week on Liz Cheney? Yikes!
Oh, fuckers."
Well, these people are so, they're so pro-democracy that any discourse that they don't like, they're going to go ahead and axe.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, fuck yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh God, I've been doing a show for over 5 years. I can't count how many times. That's why I'm glad I'm on Rockfin too.
Yeah. Liberals. So Mardina Wilcutt says liberals giving everything away for token gestures. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, Biden's still appointing a fucking pro-life fucking judge.
Yep.
Who's a Republican. Where is the outrage? And you know what? I digress, but where the fuck is the outrage for Paul Pelosi?
Uh-huh.
Who the fuck is talking about that? He could have killed someone.
He is in jail. He went to jail for a few days.
Yeah, but only a few days. Yeah.
Of course. He's not
technically, it was none because he got time served. Fucking fruitcake. But
because he served a few days when he was arrested. I see.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh my God. If that were like Trump Jr. or something, oh my God.
Oh, the media wouldn't have shut up about it for 4 weeks. I mean, it would have been the only thing that you heard about on MSNBC.
Would have been commercials and it. Oh my God.
And that's the thing. That's the thing. And part of it, I mean, it's the media outlets, the corporate media outlets. So the ones that are more kind of Team Democrat only talk about the corruption with Republicans, and then the ones who are pro-Republican team only talk about the corruption of the Democrats. So people who are only reading both of those just think, oh, it's the other party that's corrupt, and I never hear anything about my people, right? And so this is just how, you know, the repeal of the fair news doctrine in the 80s and the Telecommunications Act have really just rotted our brains.
It's selective outrage. It's like when you, like yesterday, people were like, it's the anniversary of when Obama's biggest controversy, and they were sharing pictures
of the
of
tan
him
suit.
Tan suit.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, it's important to look sharp when you're bombing innocent civilians. And people just flipped out. And I'm like, what? Just because it wasn't made into a controversy doesn't mean there is nothing wrong.
Yeah.
Like, it's the hero worship with Obama is truly out. It's abysmal.
Can you imagine, just for a second, imagine if Donald Trump had run, and he did run on this, but imagine if he had run on getting out of Iraq, and then he had turned around and added 5 conflicts to our military, right? I mean, we were not in Libya until Obama's presidency. There was a couple others. We started further bombings in Syria, Somalia. I mean, all over the map, right? So he takes 2 major conflicts and turns it into like 5 or 6. I mean, imagine the outrage if that had been someone with an R next to their name, right? But you don't hear it about Obama. He has to be deified and treated like a fucking hero.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Because he's handsome and well-spoken. So, yay. Well, another fun story about Obama is he freaking traveled and campaigned for Bernie fucking Sanders back in the day.
He did,
and was like, oh, yeah, we need Medicare for all. We need universal health care. Bitch, now what?
If you remember...
Oh, no, go ahead.
I was going to say, if you remember Pete, when he first started running for president, you can actually see, I believe it was on MSNBC, he was saying that Medicare for all is the compromise.
Mm-hmm.
Pete?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when are we going to talk about an NHS, huh?
Yeah, he literally said that at the beginning. And then, 2 months later, you see him at the debate, and he's like, trying to like make it out as if Warren and Bernie are just like, what? Because then that was before Warren showed her true colors, even though a lot of people knew at the time. But she was like, he was like, how could you do that? That is absurd. And it's like, are you serious, man? Like,
yep. And just by the way, Pete's actual plan, by the time it was all said and done, when the campaign kind of got to the point where he had to present an actual plan, was basically Mehmet Oz's plan, which is Medicare Advantage for all who want it. That is, so there's really no distinction right now between the mainstream Republican Party and people in the Democratic Party pretending to be progressives. It's incredible that they can get away with this. It's incredible that the press engages in such a dereliction of duty on a constant basis that they allow these politicians to get away with that. But this is where we are. Obama also, if you guys watched his 2008 campaign, you'd be stunned. You'd think he was Bernie Sanders, and then he gets in office and just totally disregards all of it.
So 86 Blackberry White asked, when did Obama campaign for Bernie? I believe that was in 2006 when he was running for his first term in the Senate.
Yes.
It was prior to his presidency. Yeah.
Not maybe about a year or two before. Yeah, it wasn't long before.
Because I think Obama was just starting in the Senate as well. Like I think Bernie and Obama started around the same time in the Senate. Bernie had been around politics for. Before,
he was in the House for decades, but and Burlington and all, but they were escalated to the Senate at around the same time. And Barack didn't even finish his first Senate term, if I'm not mistaken, before he won the presidency, and that was
correct.
That was part of the controversy. At least the Democrats who were supporting Hillary loved to throw out there, right? Oh no, he has no experience.
What about Kamala? She only served one fucking term.
How about Pete? You're the mayor of a town of 6 people, and suddenly you're ready to be president?
Because as much as I don't like Harris, I mean, you could objectively, she was fucking attorney general. She was a district attorney. Like, she did have a lot of state government experience, but Pete had absolutely nothing.
None. Yeah. And by the way, Pete also, we were talking about Democrat potentials to replace Biden. Pete is one that they're going to try to push and have been trying to push.
What? Yep. And you know who's going to be his running mate? Save this, AOC.
Oh
Save
God!
it.
Oh God! Oh.
No.
They do Taco Tuesday together.
Yeah,
Like,
it's
I'm not even joking.
Oh, gosh.
the
They
AOC
literally do
like
Taco Tuesday together at
one
restaurants.
thing I sincerely, just from like a political strategy standpoint, do not understand is these squad members sucking up to the like. What do you actually think you are accomplishing? Like I even can be. I'm cynical enough. I can be sympathetic to playing the Machiavellian game. But what do you think you're doing showing up supporting Gavin Newsom with an abolish ICE hat as though there's any connection at all between these two things? I also, like, I would be sympathetic to her saying, listen, the other guy's a right-wing maniac. We need to support Newsom in the recall and then replace him with a leftist. But that's not what she was saying, really, right? So what I don't understand is why they have to constantly show up and sort of go full-fledged for the Democrats.
It's
They can't
extra.
even take, yeah, it's extra. You can't even take the nuanced position, right? Like, I think a serious person can say we should vote for Biden against Trump, and then whatever. You can be a serious person and say that. But what you can't do is pretend that Biden is somehow a progressive or going to create transformative change. And they go that extra mile. I will never understand that. You're pissing off the only people who support you. Everybody else hates you, and they're going to hate you no matter what. You're never going to win over Pelosi or Schumer. You're never going to win over the Republicans. But they turn around and spit in the face of the people who got them in office by going that extra mile. And I just sincerely will never understand it, even when I try to think cynically.
Well, I've had the ability to say that to Rashida's face. I met with Rokana for over an hour a few months ago. I met with Rashida Tlaib for about 45 minutes about a month ago. I met with Pramila Jayapal's legislative assistant for over a half an hour about 2 months ago. So I'm
Pramila
meeting with these
Jayapal couldn't be
people.
bothered.
Huh?
Because Pramila Jayapal couldn't be bothered.
Well, no, she was in Washington State. She wasn't in DC. So that I understand that. But no, like it actually I made her text her pictures of my medical debt and stuff like that. I was like, text her these pictures right now while I'm sitting here. And it felt good to fucking sit there and be like, okay, so here's what pisses us off. Here's what you need to do that you're not doing. And it just felt good to actually say to them. And Rashida, I was like, look, I was the disabled speaker at Force the Vote Town Hall. And after I met with you when I was campaigning my ass off for 5 weeks in Iowa for Bernie while I was going blind, you sat there and you hugged me and you held my hands and you said you'd fight for me and people like me and you cried with me. She did not even remember. Okay, that killed me right there. That fucking killed me. But then I was like, and I told people if one person from the squad was going to stand up for Force the Vote, it was going to be you. And you didn't. And I don't understand why. And she got so fucking pissed at me. Holy shit. I was like, she was like, well, fuck this and fuck that. And like just F-bombs and shit. And I'm like, wow. Like, okay, I see how it is. Okay.
Well, and like, I think to anybody out there who might be like sympathetic to the squad members in one sense or another, what I would say is these very people, like I know Bernie and AOC for a fact, have said innumerable times, we need to be pressured from the outside. So like that was an acknowledgement. We cannot, as one member of Congress, make this difference without that pressure from the outside. So to those who might bemoan us calling them out, that is that pressure. So you really can't have it both ways on this one.
That's the thing. I was so excited to have the opportunity to meet with these people because it feels good to go on Twitter and be like, fuck you, you don't give a fuck. But do they read it? No. Does it change anything? No. But here I am, and I'm sitting in meetings with them.
Because he some teams to be up, but that's about it.
Do what?
Roe or his team,
looks, or his team, but
they often comment back and like and things. So there's at least an indication he's seeing
no,
it. But yes, I know what you mean.
That's him.
Yeah. Is it really?
It's him. He runs his. Yes, I've had him on my show 4 times. That's
Yeah.
Roe.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I mean, we met for over an hour. I told him straight up there was no hugs. There was like, I was straight up like, look, here's what needs to happen. This isn't okay. And because, you know, we held our own, right now they are drafting a medical debt cancellation bill, him and Bernie, because we went and met with him. That's what accountability does.
Yeah.
But I'll never forget, he said to me, well, if Biden runs again, will you vote for him? And I said, no. And he said, what if he runs against Trump? I said, no. And he said, well, who'd you vote last time? I said, I wrote Bernie in. He said, well, who'd you vote in 2016? I said, I wrote Bernie in. And he was just like, that's interesting. And I was like, he's like, well, what if you're in Pennsylvania? What if, you know, Dems lose? And I was like, you think the Dems are going to lose by 1 vote? That historically has never happened. And he's like, well, it could. I'm like, what?
But the point is the entitlement to somebody's vote is so absurd to me, especially coming from someone who purports to be like somewhat of an outsider within the party. You like, how is it that you don't understand that lefties are dissatisfied with this administration and with this party? You ran on it. So like how, I mean, I sincerely, he's either being deceitful or there's a disconnect at some level that is like well beyond my comprehension, because I don't understand how this can be your base. And then you totally just misunderstand your own people. Like it just, there's something wrong there. And that's not unique to Roe either.
Here's the real kicker. So I brought, some of you guys have probably seen the pictures. I brought my stack of $15,000 worth of medical debt, even though I have insurance from the past 2 years. And I explained that, and he goes, are you in debt? What?
No, I already paid all these off. I'm just giving you an FYI.
What? What? I just looked at my comrade and I'm like, did he just...
do you guys know that meme where the guy blinks and is like,
I
think that's how I just responded to what you, like, that's, I don't know.
Are you in debt?
And this coming from the people who do acknowledge that debt is there and do rightly gripe on that debt when they're on social media. But then somehow they like, I do not understand the disconnect there. That doesn't make any sense to me at all. Shame on him for that. That's outrageous.
Well, but then he agreed to do our legislation. So I'm like, I don't know. Like, I don't fucking get it. But are you in debt? What the fuck do you think I do for a living? Anyway, we got way off track. But yeah, that was the one moment that I was just like, holy fuck, did that just happen?
Like, that's how bad things are, right? Like, oh my God.
Anyway, we have other stories. I got way off topic. Andrew, what else we got?
This right here. So, recently, I talked about, I think on People's Voice Network, how Los Angeles recently passed an anti-homeless bill where there cannot be any homeless encampments within 500 feet from early learning centers, schools, and various other places, right? And making it potentially, criminalizing homelessness. So here we have Indianapolis. Indianapolis is a pretty liberal place, right? They are criminalizing mutual aid distribution. How does this work? Well, the goal of this proposal is to punish our already suffering homeless communities, photographer Wildstyle Today producer says about a new measure being considered that criminalizes distribution of food and other goods to the unhoused and poor in Indianapolis. The Indianapolis City Council is targeting mutual aid services under the guise of concerns for litter and potential violence. Sponsored by counselors Zach Adamson, Kristen Jones, and Vop Osley, Proposal 256 will take an effect in October if passed. It imposes criminal charges and fines on anyone doing charitable distribution to 10 or more individuals on city property or public sidewalks without a permit. Even if such a license is obtained, it can be revoked by the Office of Public Health and Safety if complaints are received from the public or any law enforcement agency. Prop 256 threatens a $250 fine for first-time offenders, and those with multiple violations will be fined $500. Wildstyle, a photographer, videographer, and music composer who documents life, nature, hip-hop, and community in all points they may intercept. His work records the hurdles that unhoused communities already face in Indianapolis. He tells People's World that Prop 256 will make a bad situation worse. The counselors pushing the effort to criminalize helping others claim they are ensuring an appropriate balance is struck between promoting charitable activities and preventing litter and violence. Wildstyle predicts the opposite will happen. It doesn't actually help some of the business people's goals the way they think it will. As far as eliminating litter and making a safer downtown, it's going to create more desperation, possibly more violence, and definitely more misery. He argues it's not going to have its intended effects, not in the way some supporters think. It may, in fact, increase litter in the city because currently where mutual aid is distributed, there is access to proper trash and recycling disposal. For the entire city of Indianapolis and Marion County, there are only 2 designated OPHS charitable distribution sites exempt from this proposal: the Old City Hall and Babe Denny Park. Moving food, clothing, and other aid distributions to these locations will reduce access. Wildstyle says the 2 approved locations come with other complications too. The Old City Hall is a parking lot with no trash cans, only a recycling bin that says no trash. The lack of infrastructure, Wildstyle says, you can't make this shit up, creates an unsafe situation. It has no restrooms, porta potties, or washing stations. Nothing that can actually support charitable distribution for anybody. The other location, Babe Denny Park, does have portable toilets, but still no washing stations. And another issue is its location. It's in the shadow of Lucas Oil Stadium and is surrounded by parking lots. So that location is completely inaccessible if a large event is going on at Lucas Oil. Not just Colts game, but even the Drum Corps convention here over the weekend. When I went by, it was completely inaccessible. Furthermore, the condition of the park is not well suited for distribution. The park itself is in poor condition. There's no love there anymore. It's not taken care of, not just neglect. So this is the kicker, all right? The legislation is not new. Prop 256 was originally proposed in the fall of 2020 by Republican City Councilor Michael Paul Hart as Prop 291. Wildstyle believes that although it was a GOP lawmaker initiating, it was a gentleman's agreement that some of our Democratic city councilors wanted this too. When it failed, councilors waited, decided to represent it differently the next time with a diverse team of Democratic councilors bringing it forward. Ironically, this proposal is actually more stringent than the Republicans' version. Okay, so enforcement of Prop 256 will be paid for through tax revenue, money that we desperately need to go into our communities. Indianapolis could achieve better results for the business people, a safer downtown, less litter, and overall better aesthetics by doing their due diligence as city government to provide services to all its citizens. And so Wildstyle says a letter he wrote to counselors asked what happened if the mutual aid distributor charged with violating Prop 256 doesn't pay a fine, got no response. As he understands the ordinance, it essentially writes the Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Department a blank check when it comes to enforcement. So, yeah, there's a little bit more in there, but you get the idea. And I mean, I think it's just, you know, we talk about all the time on the left, particularly like how important mutual aid is, especially if, you know, as alternative means for electoral politics, right? And supporting communities. And of course, this is a way where they're like, nope, it needs to be very specific here and there, and you could get fined if you don't do that. But don't worry, this money will go towards these communities, I promise, even though, like, yeah. What are you doing now? How are we supposed to trust that it's actually going to go to the communities? So.
This is like way like, remember when they first started putting the metal bars on the benches?
Yes.
And we were like, oh my God, that's so fucked up. Then they were putting like spikes on the branches because they didn't want the birds there. And like now it's this. Like it's worse and worse. this is fucking, and I don't know if you guys have ever tried to get like a small business license permit type thing, but for some reason I do a lot of flea markets to try and get rid of like old clothes and shit. And they wanted me to do it for some reason. And I'm like, it's a fucking flea market. It's just like my old clothes and shit. But they were having people do it. I wasn't going to do that. Like, you have to fill out all this shit and sign all these papers, and you're responsible for X, Y, and Z up to 6 months and all this shit. And like, they're not even selling anything. They're handing shit out.
Yeah.
Insane.
Well, so I mean, okay, I don't even know really where to start with this one. First of all, it's very interesting that they did the sort of Bill Clinton approach where it's like, oh, Republicans would get criticism if they put this through, so why don't we have a fucking Democrat do it?
Right.
That seems to be a strategy quite consistently. And the Democrats, of course, feel like they have to be quote unquote tough on crime, so they talk themselves into doing these absolutely horrendous things that are really like you said, even more harsh than the Republican policy. That's outrageous. But the real main point here is, if you would like to get their trash out of the street, I have a proposal for you, and this is going to sound really crazy. Put them in a house, where they have trash pickup. I mean, what a fucking concept, right? Whoa,
right.
It's sort of radical idea.
Yeah. Yeah. But instead, of course, we're all too willing to pay cops to criminalize the homeless instead of paying for housing for the homeless. So this is one of those issues that like gets treated as though it is somehow deeply complicated and complex.
Right.
It is one of the simplest issues to solve in America. There are more empty homes than there are homeless people, and we still have homeless people. It is not difficult. And of course, I mean, I'm sure the audience understands this, but if you want to turn around and say, well, get a job, earn it yourself. I mean, I'm sorry. Have you ever tried not having access to, say, a shower and getting a job? Have you tried not having access to, say, a phone to communicate and getting a job? How are you going to get to the job interview? Okay, are you going to pay for the bus? Do you have a car? ID. Thank you. Yes. So, like, there are so many hurdles in between houseless people and a job to earn it, and a lot of those hurdles would be removed by simply providing them with a fucking house. So I think the conservatives kind of accidentally tell on themselves on this one. And, of course, the Democrats are all too happy to participate in this case and many others.
Yeah. Natalie Williams comments and says, my city has also made homelessness illegal. They raised the fine to $1,000. Right.
Hey, one question. Do either of you guys know, how do they know who's houseless or not? Like, all of a sudden, so if Joy and I are standing in the street, and I hand Joy a fucking muffin for breakfast, is someone going to come by and say, hey, can I see your residential papers to make sure that you're not homeless? Because this person just gave you something. I mean, at what point, like, where does this end? Where does this go? How is this enforceable? Absolutely absurd.
You know, the cops are generally really good at just checking and knowing for sure before they make a move on someone.
Well, and I'm sure there'll be no racial profiling involved here, right?
I was just going to say, I mean, we're white, so...
Yeah. We'd probably get a pass.
We're probably okay, unfortunately. Yeah. Oh my God.
What an insane story.
Yeah.
What an insane. And by the way, but this also can't be the same people who purport themselves to be Christians have this ire and hatred for the poor that is beyond my comprehension, right? Now, of course, there's no principle with anything that they claim to believe. So it's not like it's it doesn't diverge from their normal behavior, which is to be massive hypocrites. But it never ceases to amaze me how these people will preach, help those in need, right? And then turn around and criminalize them for being in need.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Don't have an abortion. What, you can't take care of your kids? I'm not giving you my tax dollars for your fucking welfare. Mm-hmm. Okay, like, which is it?
Mm-hmm. Oh, and by the way, the same straight white men who are anti-abortion and say, well, if you don't want to have a kid, then just don't have sex. They're the same ones who are constantly complaining that no one will sleep with them. So I don't know which one it is, but you kind of need to pick a lane. You know what I mean?
I've been saying that to dudes. I'm like, I'm sorry, you're a virgin. My condolences, but you don't need to be up in other girls' hoo-haws. Like, I'm sorry, seriously.
Yeah. I know you think you own everything. You don't own that.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Ugh.
Wow, what an insane story. That one even surprises me. It's like Joy said earlier. I think there are a lot of things that are like predictable if you follow politics, but nonetheless like morally stunning and viscerally stunning. It's like I this happens to me a lot. I'll see like a police brutality is another one of these, right? I mean, I know it happens all day, every day. I know 3 people are killed every single day by police in this country, and I'm still just completely stunned to the core when I see the kind of behavior that police engage in. I think this is a similar story.
I think that's very important because if we were desensitized to it, that's a big issue.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's good when we can still be outraged and we can still be like, this is so fucking wrong. Because if you are desensitized, that means A, it's happening way too fucking much.
Right.
And B, it's not hitting you as much as it should, so you're not going to react as much as you should.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I always say being an empath is going to be the enemy. Like it really will. It's fucking hard. It really is.
Well, this is
difficult.
certainly what they've done on foreign policy, right? Look at the pushback for Vietnam and compare that to the response to Iraq or Afghanistan or Libya or Syria or Somalia or Palestine or any of the. I mean, so there used to actually be this very anti-war sentiment in this country, and I think a lot of the reason that disappeared. I don't think all Americans have suddenly become like intentionally callous towards, like I think it really is that we've been desensitized and this has all become so normal, combined of course with the press not showing it to us like they showed us Vietnam. But I think those two things, like we can't let that win, and I think you're completely right about that, Joy. That's an important point.
I think a lot of it is we do worship the troops too, though. We're always like, salute the troops and say Pledge of Allegiance, and you go to a baseball game and it's and it's very much like we celebrate imperialism. So I think that definitely contributes to what you're saying as well. Absolutely.
Well, I don't mean this is a little bit off topic, but like the Kaepernick thing, right? That one thing that was almost entirely left out of that discourse is the fact that the NFL paid. The Pentagon paid the NFL for a long time $20-some million a year to do to bring the flag out and do the whole dog and pony show. Oh, do they still? Yeah. So why is that not okay? You know what I mean? Like, why is that not the problem here? I mean, it's just a quick personal anecdote, right? At Costco, we do these chocolate tuxedo cakes. I'm in the bakery. I have to, package them and
What
deal
is
with
that?
they're delicious. It's like it's a rich
like
chocolate
literally
cake.
shaped of a tuxedo.
No, I think the tuxedo's because of the color. There's like some bronze stuff in it, and like I don't know. I don't know exactly what the definition is, but for the 4th of July, we were selling them with red, white, and blue decorations on it, right? Which at least makes sense for the 4th of July. We're doing the same thing for Labor Day. And I sat back and saw that, and I was kind of like, this country has steadfastly opposed labor at every single opportunity, and we are going to celebrate Labor Day by using the patriotic colors. There is a tremendous disconnect between the reality and how people view these issues, and that patriotism, the fetishizing of the troops and the flag. I mean, it's disgusting. It really is. And by the way, if that was happening in North Korea, Americans might have something to say about it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh my God, we could talk all night. Oh my God. Andrew, do we have any other stories? Or do
you
we
wanted to touch on this right here, which is Karl Marx statue was unveiled next to Lenin in Germany's, I'm terrible with German, Gelsenkirchen. The installation holds special significance. Okay, there we go. The installation holds special significance in a period when reactionary governments in the Baltic countries proceed to dismantle Soviet memorials.
Yeah. Well, first of all, your German was fantastic. I just
made it up.
Yeah. I'm just believing you, but that did sound. You had the little in your voice. Like I would have believed you.
Also, a little bit of like Irish accent in there too.
I know, because I know. I've been to Ireland and I do this. Yeah, in Dublin. Yeah, I do. Well, my Russian, I do, my name is Svetlana Bubush. I'm from Russia, and I come here to attack the Bernie Sanders people and get rid of the leftists and tell them to go fuck themselves. Yeah, I like doing all kinds of accents, but doesn't mean I'm good. I just enjoy it.
Well, that's what really matters, right?
Exactly.
This is a cool story, though. I do like to see this kind of stuff. It's a nice, lighthearted way to close out the show because I think it's
Can you
important.
imagine if we did those statues here?
Oh, we wouldn't be allowed to. I mean,
I
there's
know.
no. You'd have to do it at your
while you're
house,
taking
like you.
down those Confederate statues. I got an idea what to put
right.
up.
Right.
I give
Fuck
it to
Columbus. Let's put up Marx.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my god, that'd be badass. Who would we make a statue of if we had? I'm trying to think because it would.
Man,
it
I'm
have to
thinking
be
Mayo
someone
Pete.
dead.
What do you guys think?
Do what?
I'm thinking Mayo Pete. What do you guys think?
It would have to be very white, probably
Very
marble.
white. Yeah.
Yeah. And
He'd have to have like a little plane next to him, like
Yes.
transportation.
like a little toy train.
We could put a McKinsey logo right on his chest there.
Yes.
Oh, and a letter in his hand because he apparently wrote a sternly written letter to some of the airlines who are canceling all their flights. So, a letter.
Ooh.
We see how much that worked, right?
Oh, absolutely. Those letters always work.
He's an activist now.
Yeah. They're about as effective as thoughts and prayers. I mean, it's the most important tool in our toolbox.
It's the liberal version
Maybe
of
we
thoughts and
look
prayers.
at a statue saying thoughts and prayers with a big old dumpster.
I went to Wall Street and I told them to cut it out.
Cut it out.
Cut it out.
Cut it out.
I went to Delta.
I went
Fly
to Delta.
on time, please.
Look, it's okay that disabled people have issues getting on your plane, but you are delaying flights and Karens are getting pissed and I'm sick of hearing about it.
I know that you don't start paying your flight attendants till the flight actually takes off and they don't get paid for boarding, but
Yep. And they get attacked and punched in the face.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
While they're not being paid.
Mhm.
Yes. Banana. If we ruled the world, you guys, they should put statues of us. That'd be badass. We could have capes.
Capes.
What's it say?
VA from NY, $5. Thanks for the shout out to Comrade
you.
Lenin.
That is Virginia, who is our resident communist at Real Progressives, and I'm hardly
Yes.
surprised that she is glad to see Lenin there. Thank you to Virginia.
I texted it to her today as soon as I saw it. I'm like, look. I'm like, she's salivating right now. Well, we are so thankful to have you, Luke. We love you, and you are fabulous, and I definitely want to do this again.
Oh, this was so much fun, you guys.
Thanks
Thank
for
you so
coming
much
on.
for having me on. And thank you for making a point to highlight some of these stories that just do not get nearly enough attention, not just in the mainstream, but I think also in independent circles. I mean, I think it's really important to draw attention to these stories. And yeah, a huge shout out to you guys for that. And also a shout out to More Perfect Union. I know you guys said that earlier, but they are a fantastic resource on
They're
labor
very
issues. At More
I feel
Perfect
like we
US on
always
Twitter.
use them like once for
Always.
they're
Yeah.
like our number one source because there's just like
And that's how I reach out to people. Like, I saw you on More Perfect Union.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like I'm like using them as my pimp. Like, they're finding people, and I'm just like, okay, my turn. But
Yeah.
like people don't know who are watching this, but just in case, like, there are followers who came over, where can people find you, Luke?
Okay, so I am at Luke Parcher Show on Twitter, and my show is done on this same YouTube channel, Real Progress in Action. You can find me here every Sunday, and we also post clips throughout the week. That's basically where you can find me. I would also just say, please, I know I say this on my show all the time, and I'm sure people get tired of hearing about it, but please hit like and subscribe to this video if you're watching right now. Make sure you're subscribed to Real Progressives as well, which is our 501c3 channel where we do economic education. And anything you guys can do to share the content, whether it's by word of mouth or over your social media or whatever it might be, the algorithms are not too friendly to us, as you might imagine. As was pointed out earlier, one of my clips was outright removed from YouTube earlier. So if you'd like to help us out, we really do appreciate it. And realprogressives.org or realprogressives.org/donate if you want to learn more or help out. So you can find me on Real Progress in Action. I'm at Luke Parcher Show on Twitter. Really appreciate you guys having me and for everyone for tuning in.
Absolutely. And you can find me on my own channel as well, Savage Joy Marie Man. I have a YouTube and a Rockfin. Also, I have some great guests coming up, which you can find on my Twitter as well. And next Monday, we have my comrade, Chuck Modi, will be joining us next Monday. So I always love doing shows with him. He's wonderful. And Andrew, what you got going on?
Yeah, so tomorrow you can catch me on People's Voice Network with Overlook News with my other host, Z. And on Thursday, we're actually going to be for Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern, for the New Left on People's Voice Network. We're going to be talking to Alex Vitale, who wrote The End of Policing. So we're going to be talking about, the police state. And we're also going to have Noli D as well, who loves to talk about how terrible the police are. So, tune into that. And Virginia, saying, I didn't know flight attendants aren't paid for boarding passengers. Wow. Yeah,
Nope.
so actually a few months ago did a story on this. So the only airline, to my knowledge, that actually started paying flight attendants was Delta. And
Correct.
Part of the reason why was because Delta got pretty close to the flight attendants got pretty close to unionizing there. So that was sort of their thing, like, all right, we'll pay you.
Because Sarah Nelson's a badass bitch.
Right.
Yes, she is.
That's
she
the
is.
story behind that. I didn't know till a few months ago too that, like, because you just assume, like, especially like they just arrive, they're boarding people is like the hardest thing to do as a flight attendant.
Standing there, taking tickets, making sure all their stuff is stowed away, making sure they all have masks, making sure they all have seatbelts. Getting everyone comfortable. Yeah, that takes like easily at least 45 minutes. At least. They do not get paid for that.
That's absurd. That's absurd.
Which means
really,
when you're getting off the plane, they're not getting paid for that either.
Or the transportation to and from the airport or any. I mean, that's ridiculous. That is ridiculous. I do just really quickly in the chat, I want to shout out my cousin Tyler Parcher, who asked for a shout out. Thanks for tuning in, Tyler. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Tyler. You got a great cousin there, Tyler.
Oh, I'm the lucky one. He's far superior to me.
Aww. You're so damn adorable, Luke. I'm just going to put you in my pocket and take you everywhere.
I get a lot of adjectives. Adorable is not usually one of them, but I do appreciate that. Thank you very much.
I call you handsome, and you're like, I'm very good with compliments. I'm very good with compliments, right, Andrew? You've been putting up with me for a year. You've been tolerating me for a year. Well, thank you again so much for joining us. Everyone subscribe to everyone's fun stuff. Smash that like button and share. And we will see you all again next Monday at 9:30 p.m. Eastern with Chuck Modi.
See you next week.
Much love.
Thanks.